Back here in our Fight Network studios alongside John Ramdeen, Bellator is going to be kicking off their year with a big card from California with Chael Sonnen taking on Tito Ortiz. And we're looking ahead to, every year we say this with Bellator, it could be that next set of steps forward. And the company certainly, you're starting to see a nucleus now of talent that they have been able to manage, a lot of prospects that they are quietly bringing up, and key free agent signings. And the hope is that you're going to have a mixture of fighters and hopefully produce some stars, which is always going to be the oxygen to this business. They have that with some certain guys, but long-term this year, John, what are you looking at from Bellator? Because they have a lot of interesting parts in play this year.
Well, one of the things I look at is Scott Coker's role in Bellator and what the goal is for the audience. And when Coker's putting together shows, the audience is first and foremost. He wants to make sure everybody that's watching his product is entertained by that. So that could be the highest level of skill of mixed martial arts, or it could be a crazy spectacle, and it could be a combination of both. Some aging stars like Tito Ortiz and Chael Sonnen. If you are a combat sports fan, you know who both Tito Ortiz and Chael Sonnen are. You're tuning in for that fight alone. So I would expect the numbers based on that fight are going to be through the roof. On top of it, you get the hardcore fans, the kickboxing fans. You have Paul Daly on the card. You have Brendan Ward on the card. You have Machida's brother, Chinzo, on the card as well. So you have a bunch of fighters on the card that you're trying to develop your own talent, and that's what Coker's done in the past. I still don't get the sense that it is Scott Coker's machine like it was in Strikeforce, because one of the things that we've seen from Coker, Ronda Rousey was in Strikeforce before she was in the UFC. Luke Rockhold was in Strikeforce before he was in the UFC. Same with Daniel Cormier. There's so many fighters that Scott Coker helped build up. And he's like, this is where I am right now. I'm trying to develop talent. And on top of that, I'm going to try to go get some of the most exciting fighters out there to be the supporting cast for the talent that I'm going to build in the future. Because he understands this is probably Tito Ortiz's last fight. How many more fights does Chael Sonnen have? It's like maybe one, maybe two, maybe five, but you can't count on that. You have to develop talent, and he has such an awesome relationship with really gyms all over the world, but some of those big gyms in California that produce so much awesome talent.
And you're somewhat seeing a pendulum shift in the market, because I think any company outside of the UFC is very much, their talent pool is going to be dependent on what the UFC's needs are. When Scott Coker was promoting Strikeforce, that was an era when the UFC had maybe 250 guys under contract. When Scott Coker replaced Bjorn Rebney, you're talking a time it was 500 plus fighters, a lot less of those free agents and big names that were outside, your Josh Barnett's, Dan Henderson's, etc. Now, we're seeing a lot of fighters their contracts are coming due, they're going to the expiration of their deal. A lot of guys want to test free agency now. So you're seeing somewhat of a shift now where Bellator is going to have their opportunities in 2017 that guys are at least going to wait till the expiration of their deal. Your Ryan Baders, Lorenz Larkins, and there's probably going to be other names, maybe even above those levels, that Bellator can at least make competitive offers for. And you're able to grab some of those key names. That's what they're after. And they're not trying to sell you on pay-per-views or spend money. It's just tune into the television product, which is very different than the UFC's course of action of trying to get you to spend $60 a month.
Exactly, and you look how that experiment worked out for them. One of the big signings they had was Ben Henderson, former UFC lightweight champion, and some people might think, well, that was a bust because Ben Henderson had paid this guy all of this money to lose a bunch of fights. However, I think Ben Henderson did a hell of a job. The Pitbull fight, Pitbull was looking really, really good, proving Bellator's talent on the same level as that of the UFC championship caliber. And then you look at the Koreshkov fight, it's like, wow, we thought that Ben Henderson was going to come in here, move up, and wreck these guys at 170 pounds. Okay, now we see that these guys are on par with the rest of the division. And then you have this hell of a fight with Michael Chandler. And that's also something the Bellator organization, they have to focus on. The stars that they've built, make sure the world knows that they've built these stars. Michael Chandler, he loves fighting for the Bellator organization. He told us that. He said, they treat me well, I'm taken care of, and I just get to go do my thing. And and it's one of the things we've heard for many, many years, is Scott Coker's relationship with the fighters is one of the reasons they love being around, or they love fighting for this guy.
And you mentioned Michael Chandler, and I believe that fight with Benson Henderson, it peaked with over 1 million viewers.
Yeah,
so there's
awesome.
a big value there. Benson Henderson was always a pretty good television draw in the UFC, and that's what they wanted on Spike. Now, Michael Chandler, he is your lightweight champion, but he's also, it seems that there's a line forming now for whoever can get Rory McDonald, who was a big free agent signing for Bellator. He has stated he's not probably going to fight until the summer.
Yep.
But still, you have Douglas Lima, who wants to fight him, who is now your welterweight champion, and now Michael Chandler he's open to going up to 170. Do you like that idea for Michael Chandler? Because he, to me, is a key part of this Bellator puzzle. I think he is someone you build a division around, and it's somebody that is a major star for this company that could be that much bigger this year with the right fights and promotion.
Oh, I love Michael Chandler. The guy is a savage, and just the fact that he'd be willing to move up to 170 pounds to face Rory McDonald explains.
Who could be a middleweight.
Yeah, exactly.
That guy could fight at 185.
If you've ever been around Rory McDonald, he's enormous. So for Michael Chandler to say, I'm willing to do that, just shows you what type of fighter Michael Chandler is. But I think for Bellator, they're just going to try to make the biggest fights they can make with Rory McDonald, some of the highest profile fights. I don't know if that necessarily makes sense because you have such a dominant champion in Michael Chandler who's taken out the best. People want to watch him. They want to see him win. They want to see him be exciting. So I think you leave him separate and just try to find cool matchups for Rory McDonald.
Do you put Rory in a title match right away?
I mean, you could, but what happens if you say he doesn't fight till July? You're telling me people wouldn't want to see Chael Sonnen versus Rory McDonald at 185 pounds? I think a lot of people would see that. Yes, it may be more spectacle, and a lot of people are like, wow, Rory's so much more evolved. It's not always about that. It's about trying to sell a fight and trying to entertain the crowd, and Chael Sonnen will be more than happy to take a fight of that magnitude.
I know it's not the biggest fight in the world compared to what you're throwing out, but are you telling me you wouldn't enjoy seeing Rory McDonald and Andre Koreshkov?
Oh, both of those. Douglas Lima, Rory, in my opinion, of course, I don't think anybody in the world is going to debate you put Rory McDonald in a title fight. It's like, of course, it makes sense.
Yeah, you can. There's a lot of options.
Right away.
To me, Koreshkov, that's a very interesting fight. That is not just some gimme fight for Rory McDonald.
100%, and then you can set it up with that. Show everybody Andre Koreshkov manhandling Ben Henderson. You set this fight up with Rory McDonald and Andre Koreshkov. Canada versus Russia. The winner gets the Brazilian/American and Douglas Lima. So it's a good problem to have. And then you have Michael Page, too, in the mix at 170 pounds. So there's a lot of good options. Bellator just has to make sure the audience understands who the big players are and understand which ones are able to move back and forth at 100.
Canada versus Russia in Thackerville, Oklahoma. Get ready. So a lot of interesting options on the table for Bellator in 2017, and we will be following it with great interest.